Hello, namaste, and welcome to Agile Exploration Hub. I'm your host Nagesh Deshpande. Welcome to another episode of Agile Exploration Hub. In today's episode, we are going to discuss about how to design your own Agile maturity assessment. So, what is Agile maturity assessment? That's what we are going to discuss. But as I can see in the industry, Agile maturity assessments are everywhere. Most of them are generic, focusing on the just checklist, checking the things are getting done or not done. That's a real outcome hardly getting validated, or even teams are not sure what are they going to do with the outcome. So how can we design our own agility maturity assessment? So again, what we are again going to discuss is how it can be a unique to your team's context. To discuss on Agile Maturity Assessment, we have a special speaker, Ankit. Ankit is renowned enterprise Agile coach, SPC, and who share the practical insights on building your own Agile Maturity Assessment. From the identifying the right dimensions to avoid common pitfalls or mistakes, using assessment as a tool, growth tool rather than not just a simple tool. So if you are listening, if you are a Scrum Master, Agile Coach, and want to do Agile Maturity Assessment in your team, in your program, in your organization, listen till the end and subscribe to my channel. So without wasting much time, let's welcome Ankit.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Nagesh. Thank you for having me here. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Ankit. How are you?
All good, all good. Thank you for
Right.
having me again.
Nice. So we have done many episodes with Ankit, and again, Ankit is one of the key supporter to Agile Exploration Hub. And let's get on with today's topic. So Ankit, I as a Scrum Master have done Agile Maturity Assessment with the help of my Agile coach in one of my previous experience. So first thing, my audience would like to understand why agile maturity assessments are needed.
Okay, there are many reasons that we would want to do an agile maturity assessment, and I will probably say this again and again. It looks a simple survey, but it is a very costly affair. So you should be very careful when you go about it. But the core of why is needed is because either you want to uh, implement a transformation roadmap, you want to get started, or if there's something which you want to identify. So it's basically trying to assess what is the current level of maturity in terms of methods, practices, mindsets that your teams, people, even leadership have. And then that becomes an action backlog to team coaches, scrum masters, agile coaches to see what kind of improvements can be brought in. And it is not only improvements, it's also to see what kind of behavior needs to be recognized and rewarded. So it's to take a health check of your current state of affairs is what I would say.
Okay, so no, now that we know why we need to do, when should we do it? Is it like when we have a high budget or we are in the problems?
When, okay, a very different answer to that would be when you have a stakeholder approval who is going to support you take actions based on the outcomes of the assessment, then you
Hmm.
should do it. Because everything else is available. The difficult or the challenging part is having an approval from. So you did the survey, you have actions, you've made your backlog. The first thing that comes up is you have to train 100 people. You don't have the budget or time for it. Uh, there's no point of doing assessment. To
Agreed. Absolutely.
do it when you have an approval of implementing the actions or the outcome.
Great point. Yeah, absolutely. So if you, even if there is a budget constraint, so and maybe approval is not there, there can be multiple dimensions to it.
Correct.
So if anyone is not green, then there's no point doing the agile maturity assessment. That further, Uh, are there any different types of uh, maturity assessments?
Um, well, there are different assessments available on the internet or by very respected frameworks or otherwise as well. But
Hmm.
probably because we're talking about designing your own assessments or things like that, I will tell you my take on it. So
Hmm.
there are three types of assessments that I believe uh, one should do. One, the first type is baselining, when either you are starting a transformation or if there's no assessment done, that is where you want to see what the situation or what the health check of the state of affairs is. The second one is investigative, where you already think something's not working for you or there are some behaviors which are not coming up. That's when you do the investigative, where you're trying to focus on a particular group of teams, a value stream, particular portfolio, or a particular behavior that's coming. So that's your investigative that you do when you have a hint, but you need to get more details. The third one is more related to governance or sustenance, meaning you are on your journey, you or you've even completed your transformation. Now it's about governance, and you want to ensure that you do an annual survey or a 6 month survey, depending on the context and maturity of your teams, and you want to see that your changes are sticking and they are not fading away, or people are showing upward trends and things like that. So that is how I would categorize three different types of assessments we can consider.
Okay. And then why do we actually need our own or have to design our own? What are the benefits you see?
Right. And like I said earlier, right, it's a costlier affair. So when you want to design your own survey, it is it is important. Yeah, so it is important to understand why would you want to do your own survey, because there are plenty of them already available. Most of them work well. But let's say if you're doing an investigative, like I said, right, when you're trying to, for example, in one of my engagements, we we knew that teams have a certain level of awareness, but we knew that there were issues with quality of backlog. There were issues with people saying that they are doing practices, but it not being consistent. And sometimes it was like a tech checkbox exercise. Now, when I have a hint of problems
Hmm.
and my context is very specific, then if I use a generic one, it doesn't help. The
Absolutely. Hmm.
the second case is there are assessments available which balance new teams, mature teams. But for example, if my teams are super matured and I'm doing it for sustenance, then I would know which areas I would want to focus in, what environment parameters. So if I'm doing a repeat one, and then if I know that some kind of an external environment has changed or internal condition has changed, I would want to include that in the survey. So depending, I mean, depending on which stage of the survey you have, if you are focusing on one particular problem or if you are trying to see or concentrate on certain parameters, then one should go for. But it is equally important, I must say, Nagesh, that
Hmm.
for designing your own assessment, the person who's designing the assessment should have an end-to-end view. For example,
Absolutely. Hmm.
if someone rates something 1 to 5, or someone rates something agree or disagree, what are you going to do with it? What kind of actions will you take? And at times, you know that there is a problem, you cannot take any action about it. Then do you really want to call that out and then know and not do anything about it? So it is very important. I mean, you need a very systems thinking approach when you are designing your own assessment.
Absolutely. So just to summarize, guys, why you need it. Every teams, every value stream, or even organization have their own context. The readily available assessment might be useful. They are comprehensive, maybe, but it may happen that it may not fit into your context on given day or given scenario. So it's better to design your own. However, one more thing that we would like to conclude here is if your team has already completed one assessment and now they are going into the second level of assessment or second time assessment in, let's say, 3 years. So again, context will change. So readily available assessment tool may not help you. So you have to design your own. So this is what we are summarizing on this question. But then you also mentioned about you know some of the behaviors. Uh, so are we also measure or ensure that the assessment measures the behavior, or we just do process and tools only?
No, I mean, and I think that's a very obvious question and has a very obvious answer. You do need to measure behavior. You do need to measure if people believe in leadership. You do need to measure if people feel there is psychological safety.
Hmm.
Because, and that's another answer to when you should do uh, an assessment. When you have somewhat psychological safety, because if you don't, then you're not sure of what kind of assessment you will get. So you definitely want to measure if people are, psychological safe, they feel encouraged or motivated to experiment things. There is no fear of, and how you would do that is there are set of behavioral questions that you would want to ask, and there are questions that, uh, for example, we feel safe to bring out issues in retrospective, or we are not worried about if our experiments fail, or we are encouraged to try the MVP approach or so on.
Right.
So there are questions in different formats and styles which will, these are just very high level basic examples, but there are questions that can help you decide if your teams are showing the right behavior. Uh, and that would be situational questions that, if this is a scenario, if you are a scrum master, what would you do? If you are a product owner, what would you do? If you are a developer, a leader, senior exec, what will you do? So that will give you behavioral, and the questions that I said earlier will give you psychological. So yes, you do a 360 assessment. I
Hmm.
think without mindset, without safety, without behavior, the methods and practices are not enough.
Absolutely. See, 360 is required. Absolutely. You cannot just do measurement or assessment on one part. Yeah. So if you start doing that, that is not going to fulfill your purpose of this whole exercise. But then, Ankit, I also want to understand, what are the key dimensions that we have in or we should must include in every agile maturity assessment.
So since we spoke about 360, right, let's
Right.
try to
Hmm.
name some. But at this point, I would really recommend people to go on Business Agility Institute website and look at the framework or look at the parameters that they have tried to cover most of the parts of it. The other place that you probably want to go and look around is the Scaled Agile website. There also you will get more things. But the one at Business Agility Institute, they've designed 5 competencies and then too many, I mean, many different parameters within it. So it gives you a holistic view. But coming back to the dimensions of what we should measure is the methods, the practices, the mindset, the basic knowledge and awareness. Now, when I say knowledge and awareness, it's about knowledge and awareness about the whole ways of working or the approach that the organization has adopted, plus role-specific awareness. If you're a leader, what would you do? If you are a senior exec, what would you do? If you are a scrum master, product owner. So role-specific, behavioral one that we just spoke about. How do you demonstrate the right behavior? Psychological safety. And then, of course, there is knowledge and skills about tools, practices, things like DevOps, CI/CD, all these things, right? So
Hmm.
when we say 360, you should have a combination of all the factors that we said. And okay, let me summarize it again because I spoke about a lot of varied things. So let's say you want to do methods and practices, you want to do mindset, you want to do psychological safety, you want to see behavior, and you want to see tools and technical practices.
Great. Good. Yeah. So you got the summarized answer now. So let's, revisit those and try to list down what what kind of assessment that you are trying to do with your teams. Okay. So now, um, do you have any examples like, customized agile maturity assessment worked very well?
Um, could be. So I'll give you an example. Couple of years ago, I was working with this very large engagement. We had a lot of people, and we needed to bring in some changes, or there was some sort of a some questions that were asked from a very senior CXO level person. They wanted to know if we were doing okay or if we are doing it the right. Now, and we really did not have access to the entire department or the luxury of rolling out. And we, because we had the transformation going on for quite some time, we had a few ideas of we thought what areas needs to be talked about. So we went to the basics. We saw what the organization's ways of working or transformation categories were. We put few questions. We put few people from tech, few people from business. We put few senior folks like value stream leaders. We put few scrum masters, product owners, and then few team developers. So we pulled up a quick set of questions. We divided this into categories. We rolled it out and we got response with it. So say for a department of more than 10,000 folks, we ran a survey for less than 100 people
Oh,
because we
mm,
didn't have the, but what we wanted to do was we wanted to take a very quick check of if our understanding was correct and if we knew what was, and we involved two, three different value streams in this so that we were not biased with one set of results. And what we got mostly validated our understanding, but there were also, and this is funny because there were very obvious things that we observed were happening on the floor, but that did not come out on the assessment. And I will
assessment.
tell you why.
Mm.
Because then that told us that uh, there were more people on the responding list who were from the senior side, like value stream leaders.
Okay.
They did not know what was happening at the, they were not connected. So instead
Mm.
of trying to see if the mindset and practices are correct, what we analyzed from the assessment outcomes is there is a disconnect between the leaders and team level practices. And because the engagement was so wide, they did not know what was happening at the ground level. So
Yeah.
we knew for obvious reasons that things were not working, but the survey results show that, oh, it is very beautiful. And that's how, so, and these things you won't get when you do so I'm not against using the ready-made assessments, but these things at times won't work if you don't know the context well. So for us, it worked out well.
Right. So similar kind of situation we discussed in one of my previous episode with Ghazala Sayed. So do check out that. She also shared her experience where they brought in the change and leadership and the senior leadership and leadership doesn't have a connect with them. So there was a gap. And why the change was brought, no one was aware of it. So so that kind of situation will happen. But now you got the feedback from that litmus test that you did with 100 folks, and then normally we get the feedback of sometimes a qualitative feedback and as well as quantitative scoring or feedback. So how do you balance between these two? Okay, so
So sorry, go on.
yeah, that's what I wanted
Yeah,
to.
okay,
I had a follow-up thing on to share that my views, but I'll share my views at the end.
okay. So in my case, because this was a quick one specific to the survey that we did, we divided the answers in methods and mindset, two categories only. And for each category, we grouped things that were working well versus things that needed to improve. That's what
Hmm.
we did. Now, based on this, we prioritized actions that needed to be taken on each side. So, uh, for each area, there was one or two actions on methods, one or two actions on mindset. But we wanted to ensure that instead of trying to aim full maturity, we would, as in trying to aim for the utopian world within the first go, we wanted to make a roadmap of it. So we made a
Mm.
roadmap, but at each stage or each phase that we thought we will improve, it is like how you get actions for continuous improvement, right? You would want to prioritize things out of your retrospective. So we prioritized, but we ensured that we, do things which help bring in the mindset. We do things which also improve the practices. So, okay, one very quick example to that is when we were trying to prioritize actions, we took things which were, uh, you know, kind of combined, which also impacted the mindset, which also impacted the method. For example, your Scrum or Scrum's not happening properly, or it's happening namesake.
Okay. Right.
And the method problem of it was not happening consistently. The mindset was people were not able to speak or call out their issues in front of the delivery lead because there was a fear that they will get questioned, why did you not bring this up earlier?
Earlier, right.
Right. So then we prioritize this action because when we then that make Scrum of Scrums consistent and effective and outcome driven. When you take that as a backlog action, you're trying to balance the method part of it, the mindset part of it, where you will not only need to work with the Scrum Masters, you will also work with the delivery lead because of whom people were feeling a little worried that they might get questions, so better not bring up the challenge and so on. So that was our approach in that case. But in general, like we said earlier, you have 360 assessment. So you should pick how you would do a feature slicing from your backlog. That's how you should balance the method, mindset, behavior, everything.
Got it. So my take was like, I observed that whenever there is a survey or reports or any matrices come out, it's a general tendency of leadership or managers, I will call it managers. They go on to the quantity feedback. They go by the numbers. Right. And not always number helps. Sometimes, it's risky to go by the number. I said, not always. So that was my take. And as you already explained, it should be 360-degree, and then you you balance it out very nicely so that the feedback or the survey results can be used in future. So moving on.
So
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
just to what we were talking about, right? There is probably one case where numbers could make more sense, only one case, and that is also very contextual, and I'm being very careful with my words. But if you are starting a survey with very new set of people who've
Ah,
not even got knowledge of practices or all, it is difficult to expect that level of mindset or growth mindset or that agile mindset from them at the beginning.
agree.
So
Mm.
if the very new set of people, very new transformation, not been having any exposure, probably then at that point you would want to start with practices. It is though it does not sound ideal, it is very practical that any scrum master or coach would do. They would first try to get basic knowledge on the practices, get them started, and then look at how can they make them more practical or sorry, more insightful, more effective, and so on. So in that case, probably numbers would make more sense. Or all other cases, it should be a balance.
Balance, absolutely. Now that we have brought our discussions to Scrum Masters and coaches, what are the common mistakes that Scrum Masters or coaches do while doing this assessment?
I think bias, in my experience, having a bias is the most common anti-pattern or most common pitfall that people fall into. When I say bias, that they probably think they already know what is going to come out of the. And I'll be honest, I am guilty of it as well. I have
Yes,
learned
yes.
the hard way. I've learned the hard way. So that because when you are new or when you're doing it for the first couple of times, you have a different set of energy that, okay, I'm going to do an assessment, I will get a feedback, and I will change everything, then do another assessment, make the world a happy place. Doesn't happen that way. So the bias of thinking that you already know an assessment is only a formality is one of the most common things. The other thing could be with tools, and
Hmm.
I've seen it at some places that okay, we'll keep it, we have some specific tools or something. So I think confidentiality and psychological safety and convenience of doing the assessment shouldn't be ignored, be kept in mind. Because if you have a certain set of tools that you've already purchased, but if it's not working, maybe you find a different way of doing it via an Excel. But don't be very much rigid on the tools or frameworks that you use. And the third thing would be, designing or using a survey out of the context. For
Hmm.
example, I have seen a lot of teams or I have seen some teams who did not have good enough implementation of scaled agile. They were very new, but they started an assessment from scaled agile because that was available. So, and the assessment, however, is neutral. I wouldn't say that the assessment is very specific or something. It is majorly neutral. It still doesn't give you what you want, right?
Right.
So that's the other thing. And I think the very logical one, the fourth one that people should look for, the scrum masters and coaches should look for is, like I said, the very start. Think of the actions in your excitement of doing a survey. Think of what actions will you take when you get, say, for example, you are designing a question and you're asking people to rate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hmm.
You should know beforehand that if the average is 1, what will I do? If the average is 2, what will I do? The average is 5, then what do I do? It
Hmm.
shouldn't be that, okay, now that I'm relieved, the average has come 5, then all everything good. No, then how do I sustain it? So some sort of actions you should already be aware of for each question that you take is again something that's missing for most of the times.
Absolutely. Well said. One of the point I would want to add here is like sometimes, Scrum Masters and Agile coaches, they try to influence the survey. Yeah. Don't do that. Be neutral. Let the team talk about it. Okay. Even if your inputs are needed, be very, very humble and honest about your opinion in the survey. Uh, Now, coming to our last question, looking ahead, how leaders can use or should use maturity assessment to drive continuous improvement.
So I think the first thing to understand is that, like I said, there should be a buy-in, or there is first a need to create a buy-in and then go about a assessment or a survey. So once you're able to do that, right, depending on where you are on the transformation or your implementation roadmap or your transition, you would want to do survey or the assessment more than once. Now, when we uh, do it for the first time, you get a
Mhm.
different set of things. When you do it the second time, you so make a backlog out of it. Your backlog could be categorized into different aspects, like we said earlier, methods, mindsets, things like that. Or the backlog could be something based on, levels. For example, things that you want to improve at team level, things that you want to improve at agile release train, things that you want to improve at value streams, and so on. So once you do a good insight discussion or good analysis on the outcome that you've got, create a backlog instead of trying to go for everything at once.
Hmm.
Make a backlog, prioritize actions, and then communicate the wins or even the failures that, we got this in the survey. This is what we did. This is the outcome. We passed, we failed. But when you do
Agree.
that, you keep transparency, and then you are also open to saying people that we are admitting that we failed. There's nothing stopping you from admitting the same, and we are still trying. So when you do that on a regular basis, it tells people that they are being, they have not misplaced their trust. The transparency is there, communication is there, engagement is there, and then they will participate wholeheartedly or more, proactively in your upcoming surveys. The only other thing is, don't make it a burden for them. If you try to do it every
Correct.
3 months, or if you keep doing surveys but they don't take any. So, and that's an example that we got. So one of the portfolios that I was working with before I joined, and even after I joined, they had a habit of doing one survey at the start of the year and end of the year. So
Okay.
when the year that I joined, one of the folks from Europe, he said, my teams will not participate in it. You did it last time. We spent some time. I am not being told, or I don't see what improved out of it.
Agree.
If you're not doing anything about it, why take service? So it is important to do prioritized actions, communicate it, even if it fails, call it out, and be open about it.
Very nice. That's
I think
mm,
the sorry, the only other thing, and I'm sorry, I want to call this out again and again, is I said 3 times that the surveys or the assessments are very costly, is not because it costs you money. It the most important things is it costs you trust and faith. When people
right.
are
Mm,
ready to share that thing with share their honest thoughts with you, if you don't action them, or if you have the intent to action, but if you don't have a buy-in, you are wasting or you are demotivating even being scrum masters or coaches who will end up demotivating a lot of people, and it will most likely end up with our agile is namesake. We keep saying things, but we never action on it. That's the biggest cost you will face. The other thing is you spend a lot of time in preparing it. People spend a lot of time in doing it. You spend a lot of time in analyzing it. Then again,
right.
if you don't, so do be mindful of these factors. Most importantly, you're not going, if you don't action them, you're not going to get the honest answers second time. So be very mindful of when, how, why you are doing an assessment.
Great discussion. I absolutely loved it. So guys, message
Likewise.
pretty, yeah, message is pretty clear. Assessment is a costly affair. Why it's costly affair? Ankit has explained it. So do it wisely, use it wisely, and make sure you know, the right way agile is being implemented. Okay, thanks Ankit for being such a wonderful speaker. Thanks from Agile Exploration Hub, and see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Nagesh. I thanking everyone, every audience, and every viewer who's made, I think, 65 episodes now. How much?
Yeah, yes, 60 episodes. Yeah,
60 episodes so far successful. Thank you. And I will share the links with you that we can put in the video for the assessments that are available or the ones that we spoke about. Thank you,
absolutely.
everyone.
So guys, like this video, subscribe to my channel. We are going to share links in the description box. Put the comment what next topic you would like to listen, and see you soon. Bye bye.